Some of the top ways that people self-sabotage their weight loss process, first and foremost, is just having unrealistic expectations.
Welcome to the show where we help you make smart nutrition simple. If you want proven nutrition strategies to help you build a better body and create the energy to show up for your family without overly restrictive and unrealistic dieting, then you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe and enjoy this episode.
What is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Smart Nutrition Made Simple show, where I answer some of your most pressing questions around nutrition, fitness, and certainly fat loss. I'm your host, as always, Ben Brown, owner and head coach here at Body Systems, where we help you change your belief system around what it means to be healthy. And in today's Q&A podcast episode, I'm tackling the ways in which people often self-sabotage their weight loss efforts. I'll explore why setting realistic expectations is more than just a guideline, it's necessary, and how missteps in how we structure our diets and our day-to-day choices can lead to setbacks rather than progress. Next, I'm going to discuss a common client question, which is, how long does it take to see weight loss results? It's tempting to look at quick fixes, but real and sustainable weight loss, as you know, is a nuanced journey. And so I'm going to break down what factors influence the weight loss timeline and why patience and consistency are always going to be our best allies. Finally, I'm going to address a significant hurdle for many, which is, what if tracking our food intake just isn't working for you? Not everyone thrives with meticulous tracking, and sometimes it feels stressful or it's unmanageable. I'll help you explore alternative strategies to help you maintain awareness of your eating habits without feeling overwhelmed. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. Some of the top ways that people self-sabotage their weight loss process, first and foremost, is just having unrealistic expectations. You know, it's really important that we understand that making physical change, making body composition change, and improving your health isn't really about calories or macronutrients or even exercise. It's about changing your environment, and it's about changing what's going on in between your ears to the degree that we take a very externally focused view of, if I only eat these foods, eat these calories, exercise in this way, if I change my behaviors in this way, then I'll be successful. And what the way that we really need to be focusing on this is intrinsically much more around, how am I showing up? How am I planning? How am I preparing? Who am I surrounding myself with? How am I changing my environment to the degree that I'm going to be much more likely to be able to adhere to the diet plan? I'm going to be much more likely to be able to commit to the exercise program. I'm going to be much more likely to not have to leverage discipline and willpower and self-control when I hang around with the same people who helped put me in this position, not intentionally, but the same people who propelled me into this position in the first place. The people that maybe we do happy hours multiple times per week, or the bars on Saturday nights, or the football games on Sundays, that have potentiated this the eating and the drinking and the behaviors that I've been stuck in. So much so that simply by virtue of us changing those environmental factors, we can all of a sudden put ourselves in a much better position to be able to adhere, like I said, to the diet plan. And so when it comes to setting realistic expectations, I think the expectations need to shift from, I only need to do X, Y, Z around my nutrition or exercise, to, how do I put myself into better situations so that I don't have to be as reliant on self-control and discipline. I think that more tangibly, we put ourselves and we potentially self-sabotage by virtue of being too aggressive with the process. We undereat calories, we're over-aggressive on exercise, and physiologically and metabolically, that puts us in a really challenging situation where invariably we're going to get some pushback. We're going to be a lot more hungry. We're going to be a lot more tired. We're going to be a lot more lethargic. We're going to be more cranky. We're going to have more cravings. And then by virtue of that, we're going to have to rely more on self-control and discipline, to the point where by the end of a week of frankly starving ourselves and exercise and over-exercising, we're going to have very little of that willpower battery left to be able to make appropriate decisions, such that when we go out to dinner, it's really easy to go off the rails and say, you know what, I worked really hard this week. I'm hungry. I'm going to treat myself. I deserve this, right? I've earned this. I have a couple extra glasses of wine. I might have an extra dessert. I might eat significantly more food. And while we might call this self-sabotage, it's really the product of not setting realistic expectations or structuring things appropriately from the get-go. And so we want to make sure that when we're working with clients, we're always putting them in a position to be able to make the best decisions consistently. And so it brings up the next point of where we call it self-sabotage when we're inconsistent, but we're inconsistent because the things that we're doing are not realistic for us to do consistently. Right? And that's where it's so important that we actually listen to our body and we understand, hey, if I'm intermittent fasting, but I'm the type of person who maybe by the time I get to noon, I'm so hungry that I ravenously eat between 12 and 8 p.m., well, that intermittent fasting probably isn't going to be very effective for you. Now, is that self-sabotage? No, it's simply just not knowing your body or listening to your body and trying to do something that's too aggressive for what your physiology or behaviors or lifestyle can handle. And so that's really about looking at the difference between setting realistic expectations and quote unquote self-sabotage. And then the last part really is a little bit deeper of looking at how badly do I really want to change, understanding that there's an inherent level of discomfort, of significant discomfort that is present when we go through this process by virtue of obviously needing to change our eating behaviors, right? We need to change our exercise behaviors. We oftentimes need to improve our sleep schedule and consistency. Oftentimes we need to reduce our alcohol intake. And on the surface, those are all obviously really important, but on a deeper level, what that means is we need to change the people that we're hanging around with. We need to find some new and different social support. We have to change our lifestyle in terms of the way that we're doing things, our commitments to other people. We need to learn how to say no more consistently and stop being a people pleaser and saying yes to everyone and everything else but ourselves. And so I think self-sabotage plays into this to the degree that when things get really uncomfortable and we feel like we're on the precipice of making those changes, but ultimately we'd be more comfortable staying where we are in the relationships that we're in and not being too offensive in any one way, shape, or form, we're likely to do things that do end up self-sabotage. We're likely to end up overeating, over-drinking, behaving in ways that keep us stuck in those old patterns so that we don't have to continue to trudge through the discomfort of making the changes that we said we want to make. Elevate 2024 is coming. Join us on October 26th in Scottsdale, Arizona for a powerful no rules health revolution. Elevate is your chance to break away from quick fix diets and to learn proven strategies to master your health. This full day in-person workshop brings together expert coaches, business leaders, and a thriving community ready to inspire and challenge you. If you love what you hear on this podcast and you want to fully immerse yourself with the tools, clarity, confidence, and community to transform your life, both in and out of the gym, then you need to be in the room with us. Early bird tickets are on sale now for a limited time. If you want more info, just click on the link in the show notes or head over to bodysystems.com/elevate-2024 to secure your spot today. How long does it take to see weight loss results? Weight loss takes as long as it needs to take. And it's important that we acknowledge that certainly on paper, when we adjust our calories, theoretically, we might be able to say, well, you can expect to lose a half a pound or a pound or 2 pounds per week, depending on where we're coming from and whatever equation we use to create this calorie deficit. And while that's all good and well, there are so many factors that play into if, how, and why body weight and body fat is changing. And so this all comes back to the recurring theme of setting realistic expectations and understanding, listen, for the vast majority of people, if we do and are able to create a realistic calorie deficit, depending on the level of deficit, it's not unreasonable to expect a half a pound to a pound or more weight loss per week, depending on where we're starting from, how much weight we have to lose, how physically active we are, and so on and so forth. But the one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to base our weight loss expectations on anyone else but ourselves. And looking at, well, what feels realistic for me? What have I observed in the past? How am I eating and exercising in ways and behaving in ways that are going to be able to support this weight loss? And is this something that's going to be sustainable for me long term? Are certainly all of the questions that we need to infuse into the overarching question of how long does weight loss take? And then at the end of the day, it really is coming back to it takes as long as it needs to take. And there's a lot of factors and undulations and nuances that occur that can potentially get in the way. And so we just have to acknowledge that. If you find that tracking's not for you, that doesn't make you a bad person. There's certainly nothing wrong with you, but there's certainly a couple questions that you want to ask yourself is why is it? It's worth acknowledging is why is it that tracking isn't working for you? Because I'll be the first to say, even though we use this in our coaching business, tracking is a very, very valuable tool for helping us establish data and leverage data to help us make informed decisions. Now, of course, we have clients and we have worked with plenty of people in the past whereby tracking doesn't work for them. But oftentimes, it doesn't work for them because it feels stressful. It feels like a lot of work. And the reason it feels that way for them is not because of the tracking itself. It's for fundamentally two reasons. One, it forces them to actually acknowledge the foods that they're consuming and forces them to acknowledge their lifestyle behaviors to the degree that they feel guilt, shame, regret when they're forced to put the things that they're eating that they feel like they shouldn't be eating into the calorie tracking app, right? And so it really begs the question of, well, if I don't track, then I don't have to see and acknowledge all of the things. I don't have to take ownership. I don't have to take responsibility over all of those decisions that I'm making so that I don't have to feel as much, again, guilt, shame, regret. And that's obviously the last thing that we want people to feel, but that comes from the faulty notion that we shouldn't be doing certain things. And that's one of the values of the tracking, is to help people understand that they can do a lot more than they think they can, and still be successful. That's why calorie tracking in many ways can be liberating. Now, the other aspect of tracking and where people find it is potentially limiting is, or quote unquote stressful, is the fact that they don't have any planning or preparation systems in place, to the degree that every single meal is trying to guesstimate and figure out how to punch in all of the things that they're consuming, ultimately different things every single day in different portion sizes. One, that lends itself to poor progress. But two, it lends itself to a lot of decisions to be made, a lot of mental bandwidth of trying to figure out all of that stuff. And that's exhausting. And so instead, when we help people establish better, effective planning, preparation tools, eating more similar foods, eating more foods, having a system in place where they can put those foods on autopilot and keeping it seemingly basic, it actually makes the process a heck of a lot easier. They're more consistent and their results are much, much better. So when people don't want to track, though, at the end of the day, any other way where we can create awareness of the foods that they're consuming. So we have a number of clients that don't want to track, have tried tracking. It's not for them, which is fine. It could just be leveraging a notepad or the notes app in your phone and just writing it down in the notes so that they still have awareness. They're still taking ownership. We don't have as much insight into portion sizes, but they're still taking responsibility for their decisions. It could be just taking pictures of their food. It could just be following a meal plan that we already have set up where we have some approximate portion sizes that they're creatures of habit and they just commit to that daily structure and maybe a little more flexibility on the weekend and get great results. So all of those are options. Well, there you have it. That's it for this episode of the Smart Nutrition Made Simple show. If you have questions that you'd like us to tackle in an upcoming episode, then we can't wait to hear from you. So you can submit your questions directly by just messaging us on our social media. That's at Body Systems Coaching, or you can just message me personally, ben@bodysystems.com. Appreciate you guys listening, and I will catch you in the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening, and if you found this content valuable, here are 4 ways I can help you in your nutrition journey for free. 1. Grab a free copy of my Fat Loss Fix Guide at fatlossfixguide.com. 2. Join my free group at smartnutritionmadesimple.com. 3. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at smartnutritionmadesimpletv.com. 4. Leave a 5-star rating and positive review so that we can gain access to more nutrition experts ready to share their knowledge with you and ultimately help more people make smart nutrition simple.